Alright, so talking through 10.2 update notes, I'm just going to skim some of the stuff. I'm going to come back to the new character, maybe do this at the end. He does look really cool, though. Skins, look through all that and pause if you want. New Magic the Gathering skins in this event, and then also there's a market thing where basically you log in and every day you'll have a customized kind of bundle that's based on your account, like items that you don't have that you may be able to get for cheaper. So instead of paying 400 gems for 3 skins, you might be able to pay 1,000 gems for 3 skins, and it'll just be a different bundle every single day. Quality of life changes, bug fixes. Okay, they actually went crazy with the bug fixes. I think this is probably one of the bigger parts of patch notes that people don't really give a lot of credit to. But in my opinion, the amount of bug fixes they had is really, really cool here. They updated objective HP bars for Pyro and Gold Fury. They had an issue, where is it in here? Somewhere in here where the queues, basically it would count down to 0, I think, and it would like bug out the queue timer and you wouldn't be able to see the queue timer. They fixed that. They also fixed an issue where shard cooldowns were being reset while undoing purchases in the item store. It's also a pretty big bug. General gameplay, fixed an issue where Fire Giant could be auto-attacked outside of the range of the pit. If you guys have seen that, you could just literally stand directly outside of fire and just auto-attack it, take 0 damage. You could have 1 tank in the pit. The tank would, of course, get hurt a good bit, but your carries would be super safe. Now they actually have to be in the range. And then same thing, fix an issue where the damaging fire pool around Fire Giant's waist was not placing players into combat when they were damaged. Fixed an issue where Fire Giant debuff icons did not have tooltip description, sure. Order and Chaos Fountains have dead zone clips. That's been a clip farming, content farming thing. You just sit in the back of people's fountains as like minions end of the game or something. That is fixed. An issue where god pets were getting stuck in the Titan room. This was also huge. If you guys played any of these characters, their pets would just get stuck. Nice to not have that happen. Bastions can no longer be moved out of position by certain god abilities. Guides could become stuck behind totem. That's also fixed. Yeah, so I never had any of these bugs happen, like becoming stuck behind totem or being stuck in blue buff wall geometry, like you get knocked up or something like that. I never had any of that happen, but that's cool. I also really like both of these changes. UI icons of jungle camps are just more clear, so that when you are dragging buffs around to your teammates, they actually know like what the heck is going on. These are really, really cool changes that really like highlight the new leashing mechanics of the season. I like that a lot. Assault, don't care about, sorry, not gonna apologize. I guess I did apologize by saying sorry, huh? Jungle Practice fixed an issue where Fire Giant was missing. Now we have Fire Giant back in Jungle Practice. That's really cool. Baba Yaga can now stack Prophetic Cloak. That's a pretty big deal. Go Bruiser Baba build, go like Warlock stack, Prophetic Cloak, just get in there. Kakalkin fixed an issue with his skin having an unintended expanded hitbox. So back to update his tool tip or whatever. Oh, that's whatever. Fenrir, kind of a nerf, but also just fixed 2 bugs. His Brutalize would follow Surtur alt, and it would follow the backflip of Ishtar's 3. That definitely seemed like a bug to me, because he doesn't follow Neath backflip, for example. So glad to see that fixed. Eset fixed an issue with her animation. It looked super wonky, so glad that she'll get her old animation back. I don't really understand the Persephone change. I guess it's just like a texture thing more than anything, so it should just be visual, not any like gameplay thing. Yamoja fixed an issue where her basic attacks could proc Canier's Curse passive on allied minions. I actually didn't know about that. That's kind of cool. But also makes sense that it would be gone so you can't kill your own minions. This is listed as a bug, but it's actually a pretty significant nerf. Gilded Arrow fixed an issue where this is providing 25 basic attack damage to magical gods instead of the intended 20. Magical characters' pressure in dual lane is insane right now, specifically Alaron and Soul. Having this go down by 5 is a big deal. In my opinion, they could have hit this even a little bit harder and maybe lowered it to 15. The bonus damage that those characters are getting is just so crazy. Their pressure is just super unmatched. They kill bastions in like 1 wave. So definitely a good, bug fix, but also a good nerf. Divine Ruin fixed from dealing physical damage now appropriately deals magical damage. This is a buff to mages. This now means that the pen that you're buying along with your Divine Ruin, which is literally on the item or from anything else you have in your build, will now properly increase the damage of your Divine Ruin proc. Late game, this is more damage for mages than it already was. Contagion, there's a bunch about Contagion in this patch. Fixed an issue where the initial hit of the passive would reapply if an enemy refreshed the passive by walking in and out. Just think like Nox 2 or Ganesha 2. You could walk into it, apply a stack contagion, walk out, walk back in, refresh it. So basically, if you wanted to grief your teammates, you could have done that, but you can't do it as much anymore. And then fixed an issue where Nox's third ability was doing too much damage while inside teammates with the passive applied. So I guess if you were Nox 3'd within somebody and you had Contagion, it would just do too much damage. I don't actually completely understand that, but nevertheless, a bug fix is good. Frostbound Hammer fixed an issue when triggering the passive was causing a short post-fire delay where the owner couldn't cast abilities normally afterwards. It was like a self-silence whenever you auto-attack people with Frostbound, which was a big reason the item wasn't being bought as much. You should expect to see more Frostbound. I think the item is actually quite strong. So definitely going to see more of that now that you're not basically self-silencing yourself. Runeforged Hammer fixed an issue where the passive would sometimes fail to apply a damage taken debuff to a target that was crowd controlled. Makes the item more consistent, definitely already strong. Absolution fixed an issue with this item breaking Suki's and Mulan's ultimate abilities. Again, I haven't seen that, but we'll take a bug fix. It says crowd control reduction instead of CCR. Every other item says crowd control reduction, not CCR, whatever. Rod of Asclepius and Caduceus Club, same thing, it just is specifying that it can't stack with each other, which it already wasn't. Gladiator Shield, added text state the bonus damage of the item is physical damage. It could have just been misleading because the item was previously physical only. That could buy it, now the Guardians can buy it. It's just stating that it will do physical damage. This is actually pretty significant because if you are buying, like, let's say you're a Guardian and you buy Gladiator Shield and then you also bought, like, Divine Ruin or something like that, you wouldn't actually be buffing the damage of your Gladiator Shield. So Gladiator Shield Stone of Binding is specifically what you want if you are a magical character with Glad Shield, because the Stone of Binding will apply Shred of both damage types, so it doesn't matter what damage type you are, it'll just work either way. Failnaught, Hunter only text, Erendite, Assassin Warrior only text, whatever. Wing Shard had a typo, Claw Shard, whatever, don't really care about any of this. The thing we do care about is Horn Shard. This is listed as a bug fix, but it's also listed as item balance lower below, which you'll see. The way Horn Shard was supposed to work was it was supposed to only be 1.5 seconds off of your cooldowns. It was actually bugged and giving you 3 seconds off your cooldowns. All this is saying is that they are keeping the bug. So Horn Shard is not being buffed, nerfed, whatever, they're just keeping the bug. In my opinion, this is a good decision to make. The item wasn't really that OP or anything, and it would have been absolutely awful if it was only half as effective, so I like that they kept it. Just worth noting. Tablet of Destinies, there was an issue where Morgan would reset the stacks with her ult. That no longer happens, and that just fixed up the tooltip. Heroism, same thing. The buff bar would show Heroes X icon instead of the new Heroism icon. Just quality of life things, whatever. This is actual balance update, but kind of not really. Titan and the green buff holder, these were things that were in the game already. This went with the launch of Season 10. It was just not in the initial Season 10 patch notes. Titan has cleave hits, which I've been owned by multiple times without realizing it because it wasn't in patch notes. And then the green buff holder, the special ability is it will heal other allied camps for 20 health a second. 20 health a second on top of 10 HP 5. That is so crazy how much this frickin' thing heals at level 1. Definitely make sure you're killing it right away if you pull the stupid camp. It does so much. Fire Giant. The center of Fire Giant Pit is now permanently impassable terrain that blocks ground placement for wards, but allows targeting for abilities or projectiles to pass over it. What I'm mainly confused about with this is, does this mean there's an invisible wall in the middle of Fire Giant before Fire Giant spawns that you cannot walk through? So it wouldn't interrupt like abilities or whatever, but if I can't walk through it, that feels a little clunky. That's interesting to me. I don't have confirmation one way or the other on that, so we'll see. Pyromancer, decrease the initial spawn time from 10 minutes to 7 minutes. If you don't know how Pyro works, basically, after the last spawn of mid-harpies are killed, instead of spawning another set of mid-harpies, it would spawn Pyro, but the last set of mid-harpies didn't go away until 10 minutes, so depending on when you cleared those, Pyro would spawn after. Basically, all this does is it makes Pyro spawn probably more reliably between 10 to 13 minutes, rather than like 12 to 15, even a little bit later. So Pyromancer just earlier in the game. That helps reward solo lane pressure a little bit more, something worth noting. Mana Camp, blue buff holder no longer summons spirit minions, just nerfs like stacking items, not really a big deal. Health Camp, green buff now also provides 10 MP5. This is a huge buff to supports. I've been having a lot of mana issues more than recent seasons, and I know that a lot of other people have echoed that sentiment as well, so having 10 MP5 is definitely a big deal. Totem, reducing the physical size of this NPC by 15%, sure. You know, whatever. It just looked big, I guess. Doesn't matter. Druid Stone, cost increased from 600 to 650. This is actually a pretty good change. This item was really insanely statted. I believe it was like 50 health and like 10 or 15 of each prots or something like that. It was a lot for the cost, so it was really stat efficient. Good to see it get changed. Stone of Binding, really big nerfed here. Decrease the protection debuff from 5+1 per level to 0+1 per level. If you were to compare this to the old Stone of Binding, for your own stats, it is still a much better item, of course, because we're still getting 250 health and 40 of each prot. The actual shred effect of it, though, is really not as powerful as it was before. If you were to compare this to, like, a Gauntlet of Thebes or something, let's say at 10 minutes, or at level 10, however you want to word it, let's say at level 10, they have an evolved Gauntlet of Thebes, and I bought Stone of Binding. If I'm level 10 and they're level 10, they're giving their teammates 10 of each protections, and I would be shredding off 5+1 per level, which would have been 15 total. I would be actually outperforming their Thebes aura, and that's without me having to stack the binding. Now, I'm just negating it, and it's the exact same, but they're actually going to have more protections than me, because they have the evolved Gauntlet of Thebes, and I don't even have the HP 5 from Thebes. It makes binding much worse in the mid-game, but it still will kind of carry over that same effect, where as the game goes on, this will outperform other aura items, with the exception of Heartward and Prophetic Cloak. Heartward and Prophetic Cloak will always at least match this aura. The best case scenario for binding is that you actually hit level 20, which doesn't happen every game for support. So in my opinion, this is now a much better solo lane item than anything. You probably move this out of your support builds a little bit more frequently. In my opinion, you could have literally built it every single game. I'd probably be a little bit more cautious with it, but it's still a good item. It's still well statted and everything. Contagion, another nerf, 3 patches. We had a bonus patch, and then a hotfix, and now another patch where Contagion is nerfed. Decrease the damage from 35 to 25. This was a hotfix that happened a couple days ago. Each player can now only have 1 damaging Contagion aura on them at a time. So let's say I have Contagion, my solo laner has Contagion, their enemy team CCs both of us. It would apply 2 stacks, 1 from each of us. Now it's only 1 total, which makes stacking the aura a lot more punishing. And it also is doing less damage. The flat damage is still a big deal, though. It'll mean that this damage is very relevant in solo lane, so you probably see solo laners build this item more than you see supports build the item, but it's still a very, very, very good anti-heal item. And then the damage aura no longer ticks at CC application time. Instead, it ticks at 1 second, 2 seconds, 3, 4, 5. So it just delays when it ticks. It used to tick at 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, and then play a 5th pause that actually didn't do any damage. So it just kind of cleaned up the ability visually and just how it actually works. Overall, Contagion is still a really good item, right? It still has a ton of mana, gives you MP5, gives you good health, gives you good prot, gives you an anti-heal effect. It just also still does damage. Like, it's still a good item. It's just probably not as broken as it was before, so I like the change for sure. Prophetic Cloak. This is one I've been talking about a lot on stream, and I think the main thing with this item is the buff on the base version to decrease the internal cooldown from 10 to 8 seconds. This is a huge deal. This is a 20% buff, essentially, of your downtime, or, you know, 20% nerf in downtime. I don't know how to technically word that. But being able to stack it quicker is a huge deal. It'll help you get to the evolution a little bit more reliably. But the evolution itself goes from 55 prots to 40 of each. So previously, Prophetic Cloak on the evolved version was giving you 55 plus 30 from the aura of each prots. It was giving you 85 plus 85, which was a total of 170. It is now giving you 40 of each prots plus 30 on the aura. It's 70 of each, which is 140 total. Gauntlet of Thebes is worth 130 total, right? 55 prots from the stacks, plus 10 on the aura. That's a total of 65 each, which is 130. So the evolved version of Cloak is still 10 more prot than Thebes. The aura is still 3 times as good, and you get damage mitigation, but you lose out on HP 5 and 100 health. I guess you get 10% CDR as well, is worth noting. In my opinion, this change is a little bit overdone. I think they could have changed this to 45 instead of to 40. The item, in my opinion, is still the premier first item for supports. It's still the best aura in the game by a long shot, and it still gives you the opportunity to be tankier in the late game. The mitigation didn't change at all, so it's still your late game tankiness, you know, best in slot, and your best aura. So in my opinion, it's still the best item, but Thebes will still be way more consistent, and you won't lose the upside as much. In my opinion, between the cloak nerf as well as the binding nerf, the main thing for me here is that I actually am probably changing my opinion on building cloak and Thebes together. I previously would have rather just had cloak binding every single game, and now I think building cloak and Thebes together is probably the meta that you'll see for supports. The big thing here as well is that you might also see people go Thebes first, depending on how easily you can stack this. Me personally, I'd rather get my cloak stacks earlier than my Thebes stacks, because the cloak stacks are just a better aura. It's better for my teammates. But I definitely would play around with that. You probably see both of those items a lot. For the play-in tournament that we're going to see next week, I would expect that you would see both items built on support, because they should be playing on this patch, but we'll see. Next up, Sigil of the Old Guard. I'm sure you guys have seen all the damage mitigation videos rolling around where people just take no damage. Both of these changes are addressing that. Really, the cloak change as well. Berserker Shield going from 10 to 5% damage mitigation. I don't think this kills the item, but that is a really big deal. The 5% damage mitigation is kind of just whatever on it now. It's still good. It's not meaningless at all, but it looks weak, but I'm sure it's still fine. The actual stats on the item are still good, by the way. Like, I believe it's like 150 health, 60 protection, and HP 5. It's still really good. Characters like Bologna or Osiris, characters that would want it anyways, it's still good on them. I don't know if it affects how I would play with like Warflag supports or something like that. Also worth noting, it doesn't look like Warflag is re-enabled unless I missed it somewhere here in the patch notes. So that's a bit of a bummer, but worth noting. Sigil of the Old Guard anyways, decreased base damage mitigation from 5 to 3, and mitigation per stack from 4 to 3%. The total goes from 17 to 12%. The initial is definitely a good hit, just like 5% passive was crazy. And decrease the healing per stack from 3% to 1% of your max health. So they literally cut the healing to only be 1/3 of what it was, and almost a 1/3 nerf on the damage mitigation as well. This item was busted late game. Sigil was absolutely broken. It's still going to be very good, especially in combination with other mitigation items, but you definitely toned down that build. The other thing that's also really worth noting here is that Sigil was not a great early game starter item in solo. Bluestone or Tainted Steel or Warrior's Axe would still outperform it. I'd expect you'd see a lot of solo laners lean towards those items now, but you could still go Sigil for sure, as like your late game tankiness upgraded will still be the best for that. Crusher. I nearly had a heart attack when I read this for the first time. I thought it was getting buffed straight up when assassins are already so good. Decrease the cost from 2,700 to 2,600. Also decrease the power and the scaling on the passive. I think a big thing to note here as well is that while this is mainly an assassin item, I don't know if this makes it more viable for hunters as well. I don't know if the price really matters a ton, but you're still going to see it on like Chiron, AMC, that type of ability-based hunter. Overall, I would consider this a slight nerf to Crusher, but the item is still very good, especially having 10% pen, still a very good item. Heartseeker, kind of the same thing. It just is worse against squishies, where, you know, it still does the same 6% to max HP targets. Both of these changes together should make assassins one-shot, you know, mages and ADCs a little bit less in the late game, but they're still very, very good for sure. Horn Shard, this is exactly what we saw earlier. It's just the bug fix, but restated here, just to be clear. Kin size, this makes me furious. I'm not gonna lie. 5% more attack speed on... This is the best item for any auto attacker in the game, by the way. It's the best DPS item for literally every single auto attacker. They gave it 5% more attack speed and gave it a 20% buff to max HP target damage. The max HP target thing happens every game. 2750 is nothing in terms of a cap for max HP targets. Like, you're going to hit that every single game as a tank, especially post 9.5, right? You're going to hit that always. Buffing the best auto attack item, I understand why they did it. I think hunters definitely needed nerfs this patch. The thing I don't like about it is that it nerfs all of the auto attack junglers as well as solo laners who might just build kins as well. I feel like buffing kins has so many effects on other classes other than hunters. I would have rather them buff hunter-only items, or hunter, you know, mostly hunter-only items. Stuff like Executioner you don't really see on other roles as much. Even like Silver Branch, stuff like that. I would have rather seen buffs there. I understand why they did it like this, but I think this is overdone. Who knows how the role balance will be after this patch, but between nerfing a lot of soul lane and support items, along with buffing what was already the best DPS item for hunters, this is going to be pretty crazy for sure. Bladed Boomerang, decrease the cost by 100, increase the attack speed by 5%. They also made the drop effect from the boomerang go closer to you. It should pretty much be just about on top of you, so you should get these stacks pretty consistently if you're a hunter. And then fixed an issue where the item did not describe the stacking buff duration for 6 seconds. I don't know if this is good or not, or if it fits into the crit build. I would assume for hunters, you'd probably rather have this, Demon Blade, and Deathbringer. But Rage is also very good, so I'm not 100% sure on that. But I think the item's really cool, so I think buffing it's pretty fun. Chronos Pendant, increased magical power from 90 to 100. In my opinion, the item still sucks. I just think other CDR items do more. I think this item is worse than Deso and Mirrodin pretty much 100% of the time. I think as long as you're going Pendulum as well in your mage build, if you're going Pendulum plus Book of Thoth will always be better than Conduit plus Chronos Pendant. Pretty much always. It'll be better early game damage. It'll be better mana sustain. It'll be way better scaling for the late game. So still a weak item, in my opinion. Does it change anything for support? No. Not in my opinion. Brawler's Beat Stick, decrease the cost from 26 to 2,500. I actually like this change a lot as well. Anti-heal felt really bad for Assassins to build. On the other end of that, Assassins were already really good. Giving it 10 more power, it's kind of a buff to Assassins, also a buff to their teammates. I think the item felt bad to build, which is really important for an item to feel good to buy if you basically have it as a prerequisite, because there is so much healing in the game. So I kind of approve of this buff, even though I think it may look scary. Cloak T1. This is actually a pretty big deal for the laning phase for supports. You just get an extra health potion or an extra ward, being able to buy an extra ward. In my opinion, this was a really big difference between Cloak and Thebes T1, was that Thebes often allowed you to get an extra ward that you otherwise wouldn't have. This will help you ward against a lot of ganks and stuff like that early, so definitely a nice change. Goodness, excuse me. Canier's Curse, decrease the cost from 2250 to 2100. I'm definitely going to experiment with this item, but in my opinion, unless the gold on it gets buffed, I think it's just too weak of an item to build, especially when you consider that Cloak now stacks quicker. I feel like because Cloak is stacking quicker, you could go this item as a power spike item, but I still feel like Mail of Renewal, for example, would outperform it, and you're going to get outscaled by Thebes and Prophetic Cloak quite rapidly, because I think both those items will be pretty easy to get to a point that they feel quite good. So I don't know, I'd rather see the passive get buffed here than the cost, personally. Dawnbringer buff, I really like this item. I think this item is really cool. It just gives you % movement speed and protections after you ult, kind of like Pridewind. A 200 gold buff, you will definitely see this item on characters that can use it. I'd expect to see a lot of Bruiser builds. I already thought it was really good on a character like Fenrir, for example, in support, or a character like Mulan in support, any character that wants to engage by ulting. In my opinion, this item felt great. I think it's a really fun item as well, so I would definitely plan to see a lot of that. You might see it on like solo lane Thor, for example, stuff like that. You might see it. Absolution buff. Increased crowd control reduction from 10 to 20 and procs from 60 to 70. I love this item. I think buffing it to get people to play with and against it more is a lot healthier for the game. I think it's one of the coolest additions that they've made, so I think highlighting it more makes a lot of sense. I really, really like this item. Phalanx, I don't know how to say it. Increased physical protections from 55 to 60, increased health from 50 to 200, or from 150 to 200. I don't know how much this matters for Soul Lane, because I don't play Soul Lane. In my opinion, the item is still bad for support. I just think the passive doesn't really mean anything in support the way it would in Soul Lane, where you're like boxing a tanky character. Maybe it's good in solo, but I would imagine that the breastplate tree or maybe like a damage item is still better. I really don't know. I'm not really a fan of this item's passive in general, but I haven't seen it bought pretty much a single time, so I think buffing it's cool if we're going to try to make it work. I like the idea. God balance, finally. Oh, I'm also going to mention, the biggest thing I'm surprised to not see here is a Book of Thoth nerf. Book of Thoth has just been the meta mage item that people have gone first item on like almost every single mage in the game for over half a year now, or just about that. I think that item is definitely in need of nerfing, and I'm surprised I didn't see it in here. It could come in bonus balance or something like that, but definitely worth noting there. Gods, Alquang decreased magical power scaling from 50 to 40%. That's a good nerf. He was a little oppressive in the laning phase and solo, or just like a little annoying. I guess he must just be crushing stuff, crushing the queues. I haven't felt like he's that good at the top end of play, but I'm sure in like lower level play he's just been going crazy. So interesting to see a nerf. Kibo nerf decreased his knock-up damage by 10 and the scaling by 5%. I think his 1 is what actually needed to get nerfed. I think Kibo's still very, very good. I don't think this nerf really changes too much. Discordia, 2-second cooldown on her escape, on her jump. Really big deal, in my opinion. 25 base damage and 10% scaling, initial hit only of her ultimate, just makes her fight a little bit better at level 5. I think Disco's actually been a little bit underplayed. I think she fits the mage builds right now really, really well also. So I like these buffs. I think it's cool. Geb buff, always love seeing Geb get buffed. He's been pretty weak just because his laning phase is so miserable. Increased base damage from 90 to 370 to 100 to 380. Of course, the damage goes down the further away from you they are. And decrease the cooldown from 15 to 14 seconds. I don't know if this changes too much. I'll play around with it and feel it out. I do think Geb is really good with heroism, for example. I think he fits a lot of the newer items really well. I think he can be really good with absolution as well. Like, let's say you get blink engaged by a soul laner or something. If I'm able to CC that soul laner and also cleanse my teammates, that's quite cool. Say hello to Echo, guys. Hi, Echo. Hi. You gotta get down. I'll hang out with you in a minute. Come on. And then Tsukiyomi buff. Darkmoon Shuriken, it's just 10 more damage in his kit, and then 5% more scaling per dash hit. So if you hit all 4 of your shots on a target, it's 20% scaling. Pretty crazy, actually. Suki's late game damage is already nuts. I don't know how much this affects his early game. I haven't really played the character enough to know, but interesting to see him get buffed. Persistent Gust, Jingwei, increase the damage per tick, and decrease her cooldown. Just makes her clear better. I think Jingwei, I'm actually a notorious Jingwei hater. I actually think this god's been criminally underplayed, and I think she's actually quite good, and I think this change will help her a lot. I think just helping her clear is huge. Chernobog buff, Vicious Barrage, decrease the mana cost from 60 to 80 to 50 to 70, just a quality of life feels good thing. Same thing with his 3, 70 to 50 at all ranks, so overall, 30 mana buff on Chernobog in his kit, but it's pretty nice. Decrease the cooldown from 18 to 14 to 16 to 14. So basically they just buff scaling hunters that also do very well with crit, while also buffing kin size and boomerang, so I'd expect to see both those hunters a little bit more. I think mage ADCs are still going to be dominant in duo, just the way their builds are and the way their early pressure is, but still worth considering, and that's the end of the patch. Once again, the only thing I'm really surprised not to see is Book of Thoth, but there she is. I'm going to try to figure out how much the cloak changes really matter, but I think my initial impression is that cloak is still very good first item, but I think I'd rather go cloak plus Thebes than go one of them plus binding is my main takeaway.
Yep. It's just...
And the diamond. I mean, can we talk about this diamond?
Dude, that texture, like, that is crazy. That's super...
They already showed his kit? Damn, I'm gonna go through the VOD. Let's go through the VOD. I don't care about the skins.
Kind of gemstone-like qualities that our master
skins
have, and this is one of the coolest diamond skins I think that we have, and just...
Let me see this. You guys can see it. Alright, right? Surely you can now.
That type of playstyle, the player...
It's my turn.
Oh, it's so much utility here, but unlike
that, he's got eventually replaced with a Minotaur, and there he is in his glory way back in.
Yeah,
this was an incredible time of Smite. Old Zeus too.
Yep, for new players. Remember, yeah. So
okay.
We were mythological.
And let's talk about that a little bit, right? Because reported information of a Manticore in general was way back in just so he was hunting.
Yes.
Various different language.
Come on, where's the actual guy? Okay, here we go.
by the way.
That's a warrior. He's basic attacking.
Yeah, can we just have him go stand next to Odin real quick, just so we can get that nice, quick size comparison?
He is kind of a big boy.
Odin tall if you were to lay that Odin sideways, plus the tail, plus the wings.
Yeah.
He's a big boy. And as you can see, he's got a lot of really interesting, iconic features of Manticores, being those bat wings, scorpion tail, lion body. But he's elevated among the other Manticores, the red buff. You know, even the past Manticore, in that he's got, you know,
3 damage a tick. His auto damage is 77. So how much is that actually doing?
And that's really to give him this more elevated kingly status, because
45
he is the Manticore king.
Yeah.
He is, you know, still a beast, but he's more regal, more proper, more calculating when it comes to how he's intimidating, consuming, devouring. He's not just gonna go feral. He's gonna be thinking about the
5% of his in hand. Yeah, but is the total 10% or is the total 40%?
We have a lot of cool kit to talk about. So let's
The way
start
his
out with
wording
the
of
kit
his passive
demonstration.
is
Just
different.
throw it all at us. Let's see what it
Okay, because when I read his kit, basic attacks apply venom, dealing 5% basic attack power over 2 seconds. Initial hit applies 4 stacks. Hits refresh and increase damage by 1 stack, max 8 stacks. So is this either 4 stacks equals 5%, or is it you instantly get 20% damage? Up to 40%. 20 to 40? They said 20 to 40? Okay, cool. Yeah, that's a ton of freaking damage. Okay, cool.
Yeah, let's see.
Oh, this was his one? Let me see that again.
all super cool, and we have a lot of cool kit to talk about. So let's just start out with a kit demonstration. Just throw it all at us. Let's see what it looks
Yeah,
like.
let's see.
That looks so cool! That's so cool! Oh!
Oh yeah.
That's so cool. All right, so a lot of things happening right there. A lot of abilities. That one being very interesting, but we're gonna
Okay.
strong.
Keen-eyed viewers have seen, these are not your average Hunter basic attacks. There's some dot damage on the end of there. So to start out with his basic attack, and kind of tying into his passive as well, each basic attack that Martika
We kind of went through this, the 20 to 40% thing, sure. I want to see his one.
Relatively-
another came up with was, you know, finding a way to get that tail to really be shooting quickly, especially at those high attack speeds that we know Hunters are going to go to.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That our animation.
Wait, do I get to see
you know,
quick
really
tail?
making sure that these autos from his tail were feeling really awesome and really powerful.
I feel like 3
was
minutes in the
one
bush. Yeah, it's so
amazing
cool.
solution
It's
that
so
our
cool.
animation team came up with was, you know, finding a way to get that tail to really be shooting quickly, especially at those high attack speeds that we know Hunters are going to go to.
It would probably get
That's one of the
nerfed.
big things for
Last 3 minutes,
Hunter
yeah.
gods is
Yeah.
can we get their autos feeling right? And right is a subjective adjective, and
It's
it's
hard to
also
find
like
sometimes.
Yeah.
it's impossible to describe because it's different, but it's the same, but it's different for like everyone. So
I
it's
wonder
really-
if his skins
it's
would
really
change the
hard
look of
to
the
do,
grass.
and a lot of times
'Cause I
it's
feel like that'd
more
actually be a
based on
competitive
feel,
nerf.
And I think that
To not have the grass be
players
the same color.
will really appreciate how good the basic attacks, which sometimes
Okay, I want to see his first ability. Okay, here's his first ability.
That's,
So that is... Oh, his stacks, we already went over, right? It's just, you gain up to 100 stacks of ferocity. You get it from hitting basics, abilities, and earning kills or assists. That should include creeps. Once you get it maxed, you get an attack speed steroid, which scales off of your level. You get an upside of 12 seconds if you're just hitting gods the whole time. But even if you don't get to use it on gods at all, right? Because you can get 100 stacks from just killing camps. You just get a permanent stack of 1% physical and ability lifesteal. So in kit, he gets 30% lifesteal total. That's pretty crazy. But yeah, 3,000 stacks, that's a lot of minions and everything. So more realistically, I don't know how much you're actually going to get by level 20. We'll see, but that could be pretty crazy late game. Really cool though, like really cool mechanic. And then the first ability that they're showing is Acid Rain. Fires hundreds of venomous spikes from his wings, creating a circular rain of spikes that deal damage as it rolls forward. As it moves forward, it leaves behind a toxic trail. So this is just like a line shot from what I'm getting. And the initial damage, if you hit this, is 240 plus 70%. And then if you're CC'd in it or something, it'll do more and it'll slow you. He is a hunter. He's a hunter. So this is his first ability.
This passive is something that you're going to be building throughout the game.
Nice.
But as you can see, he's got a cute little passive meter with his little face on it, and it's going to be slowly.
This is for the
filling up as
stacks.
you're doing various hunt ferocity. It's not really on an ability. Then we'll convert it into an attack speed sim for 6 seconds at minimum. And so another really unique thing about Martikaras's
Martikarasica
is that it's not really on an ability. It's going to be kind of similar to Cullen Rage, where you're going to have to control.
Damn, his
when
tail
you
is
go into
pumping!
Kind of frenzied
Oh, his tail's actually going
monster
crazy.
state, you might even
That's
say.
kind of cool.
And so you can continue to keep this basic attack.
The range on his first ability? Yeah, I want to see them use the one more. I'm good on the passives.
Yeah.
Alright, here's the one.
Over. You're happy that you got your stack, and you get to work towards your next stack, which is a really fun design that Lermy really came
That range actually doesn't seem crazy. That's just like a normal ability range. Isn't that just 55? Range radius? Range radius? Okay, so it's 40 to 60? Wait until they show the max? Oh, okay. Okay.
Yeah, I think that's acid range.
Oh!
It's rewarding in the immediate and it's rewarding in the long game, so gotta love a win-win situation.
100%.
Oh yeah.
Awesome. So let's move on to the next, the first ability, Acid Rain.
Yes.
Okay.
So as you'll see here, this is our
That is
circle
so
that goes
cool.
forward in this path. And so he's basically flinging out all of these spines from his wings, and they're raining down in sort of this acidic, venomous rain. So as you'll see, there is that circular point of damage that's doing a bit of burst, and then if you remain in that poisonous field any longer, you will be slowed and taking damage over time. But as soon as you leave the field, slow's gone, damage is gone.
That's a really cool
Just,
looking ability.
A pretty solid wave clear, and a really neat thing about this is that you can actually fire it from a distance, so it doesn't have to be right in front of you. You have a pretty
That is crazy.
solid range poke
But look how long that takes to do anything.
to be able to throw this from a decent distance away.
That's really cool, but that doesn't look too OP. The biggest thing this makes me think is that the character would actually do quite well. Like, between that and his passive giving him ability lifesteal, it makes me think he would do really well with items like Crusher and Heartseeker as like an ability-based hunter. But that is really, really cool. Easy Bastion Clear, true. Actually true. That is really cool. Okay, his second ability, Poison Barb. This is like AMC Stinger that just detonates if you hit them again, right? And instead of crippling them, it just is healing reduction, but it'll root them if you hit them again. So it is an initial damage plus explosion damage. Total is 355 plus 105%. Root duration 1 to 1.8. 50% healing reduction, 12 to 10 second cooldown. This is definitely what you max, right? Yeah, it's Stinger plus Bog 2, exactly what I was thinking as well. This is definitely the ability you're maxing first. This is a ton of damage. This makes me think he would be like a really good ability-based hunter or like mid-lane hunter. Let me see for when they actually use it. Here you go.
What you'll see here is that there is a line attack, and then there's that kind of grayed out circle. And so what you'll notice is that when you click the button, the line is what happens first. And this pierces minions and stops in the first god hit. And basically,
And it only roots that one
with this
character.
giant poisonous barb. And so what you'll notice is that if you drop it on the ground here, there will be a range around it. And
Oh, it really does
blow
work
this
like
thing up
Bog.
with a basic attack, Acid Rain, or when we
But
get
it doesn't
to
root
the
anyone.
there.
It would
But
just
what this
anti-heal
thing happens is
everybody.
to blow it up, and it'll do damage and anti-heal.
That's really
to
cool.
anyone hit by it.
So he can have AoE anti-heal. That's really, really cool. But it only roots the guy you directly hit. Yeah, and it does more damage. That's the brunt of the damage, you know. Well, it's 15 more damage and 5% more scan. That's really cool. I really, really like that. I really like that ability. 1 and then 2, yeah, you could do so many combos. His 3 was the grass thing that we saw. 55 range and on the patch, so I guess you can push it out. Can you place it out in front of you, I guess? And then the radius is 27, it's like half a ward distance almost. Marty Chorus. Marty creates a patch of stealth grass in which he and all allied gods may hide while inside and on Exdane. The patch, only he gains movement speed, only he gains basic attack damage. So he gets up to 40% movement speed for 3 seconds! For 3 seconds! And 10% basic attack damage. That is such a cool ability. This is going to be so OP in comp play. I actually can't wait for it. That ability is so cool in competitive play. I want to see them place the patches. Let me skip through this a little bit.
And so as you can
Oh, here
see,
we go.
Buttons, so super cool. The next ability is one that I'm really, really anxious to talk about.
Oh, you can place it in range.
Stalk Prey.
Wait, doesn't this mean this patch is so bad? Wait, what? No shot. Oh, you mean the patch overall? I don't think so. I think the patch is good. Okay, so this would mean stealth effects cancel out something like Brutalize, for example. So Marty actually owns Fenrir, potentially. Because, like, if you brutalize a teammate, or if you brutalize one of his teammates, he can just put this on top of them and cancel Brutalize. That's, like, probably one of the more niche interactions with this, but that is really, really cool.
So, it's been a long time coming, but finally we have a god that makes their own stealth grass. And so this ability is so much fun because you can really build your own jungle, more or less. And so as you can see
so
here,
cool.
our driver is demonstrating just the power of being able to stack up
That's
three
so cool.
bushes at once. And each of them lasts for 3 minutes on their own. So you would be revealed.
Okay, this is gonna get nerfed, 100%. This shit's gonna get nerfed because this character being able to do this is so broken for the rest of your team. Like, imagine just being able to put this on top of objectives, on top of mid-harpies or whatever, and play corners, and you can't destroy them, from what I'm seeing. You can't destroy them. So you can't interact with these things at all. You can place a ward in it, but this basically means this guy can manipulate where you ward the whole game, right? Because you could just put a ward there, and if he knows you put a ward there, he'll just put it somewhere else. And he can always change it. This is busted. The duration something of this seems so busted in comp play. I'm kind of down for it, though. It seems really cool. And then his death from above. He becomes CC immune and untargetable as he soars into the air, raining down 12 bursts of damaging toxins over 3 seconds. Burst per damage per burst, 95 plus 20% scaling. This would mean 240% total, right? If you hit the same target 12 times, 240%. I can't even, that's 950 plus 190. So that would be 1,140 base damage on the same target. Yeah, 1,140 base, 240% scaling, 40% shred on the same target. This has got to be an ability hunter, right? This seems like an ability-based hunter to me. This ability and this ability specifically, this with like a Heartseeker Crusher, seems so crazy to me. And the Acid Rain too, just to proc stuff. That seems really crazy. I want to see his actual ult, like how it works.
Runaway button.
And how you actually fire it. I get the whole stealth mechanic thing, fellas. We're good.
Yeah.
It is so cool, though. So cool.
Buff. These,
This so far.
Come on, get up in the air.
you know, drop a lot.
Get up.
Fun when you
Get up.
Ross.
Or
Wait, did I miss it or something? I'm confused.
The Lermy will have them soon. New god that comes out this
Hello?
year. So
having it be this.
I went way past it. Huh?
becomes CC immune as you're seeing. He's going to fly up into the air.
There we
for
go.
3 seconds. And so this is basically a
Okay,
auto
one, this
fire,
is restricted
rapid
camera pitch.
fire
So that
ability
looks a little weird
is
to me.
raining down these like poison toxic bursts from the sky. So you can move around while this is happening. You can change.
Okay,
lanes.
so if you want to switch targets, it is auto-firing for you. It looks like it's a predetermined pace. This is actually probably fairly easy to juke out, the way the radius of it is. Let me see this
Auto-fire.
again. I'm going to slow play this and unmute the audio. The way the radius of this looks, if you were to fire this and move from one target to another, you're probably missing a tick or two from it, which is also prot shred that you're missing. But yeah, it's kind of like Soul Out with Freya, like the way it fires. But you can see if you drag to a different target, you're gonna miss a shot or two to drag to another target for sure. But that is really, really cool. That is so cool. Also, just being CC immune and untargetable for 3 seconds. That is so cool. I really like this character a lot. He looks like a lot of fun, especially for comp play. He looks like a lot of fun.